you might have, or also any ideas that you would like to share with them. We would ask you limit your time to 3 minutes. State your name if you would. We've got some on YouTube tonight. You have the sign on there, Shaylee, where they know who to text.
Yeah, so my email's on there along with the number to text Rich.
Okay, so you can use that if you have one. Do we have anybody down there, Shaylee, that's live?
No, we don't. And I don't have any emails either.
All right, super good. We'll move on from public comment. We'll move next to the mayor's report. I've got a couple items I'd like to share with you. We've had this situation at 900 West and Riverdale Road. Not enough time to make left-hand turns there when you're coming up out of Walmart, Sam's Club, and Home Depot. And right there by McDonald's, you make a left turn. Well, there hasn't been sufficient time to clear all the cars out. And I know we worked with some traffic engineers and UDOT, come up with some things, but I was notified last Friday morning that UDOT, one of the options was to take out the pedestrian lane on the west side of that intersection. That would allow longer left turn times. And UDOT notified us on Friday morning they were coming. They were going to clear that pedestrian crosswalk off on the west side of that intersection. I've been by there, and yeah, they have gone in. Looked like sandblasted, taken the paint off. So that's off. I don't know if they've got all the metering and things like that, timing things taken care of yet. I didn't see any more walk and don't walk signs on that side of the road, but that should help quite a bit. Give them that extra time where they've allowed pedestrians to walk. They can increase the time for the left-hand turn signal. So that has been done, and moving right along. So that problem we had over there just continues to get better. Last week on Thursday, excuse me, I attended a Wasatch Front Regional Council Transportation Committee meeting. And in that meeting, they discussed funding for projects and they were going in to do projects and request money for. One of those projects was one that was submitted by Roger Wortham, our city administrator. We submitted two of them. One was a pedestrian pathway along South Weaver Drive. That one wasn't mentioned, but the other one that they did talk about, that is 1050 West, just south of Target, where you go under I-84. On the east side of that road there, 1050 West, as you go under I-84, there is no sidewalk under there for kids. There's a lot of kids that go to Utah Military Academy, and there's quite a few young people use that, and it's very difficult for them to get through there. But Ben Wuthrich, he made his presentation. They actually came up here. They have a field team that goes out and they take a look at these sites, trying to decide the priorities on who should have funding. And I think he told, Roger told me this, but Ben said when he came up that kids were up on top of the Jersey barrier, walking along the Jersey barrier along the road, and other kids were out in the road itself. So they see something like that down at Wasatch Front, and it really gets their attention. But anyway, they're going in for funding. Total cost for that project is $507,000 to do that, just about $500,000. They've gone in to request $481,000. The project, that leaves $26,000, and that was to be a city match. But I think what Ben had told Roger, they'd called and said that where that is a state highway, 1050 west, and with the federal freeway going over top, they would take care of that. Isn't that right, Roger?
Yeah, that's correct, Mayor, that they'd fund the entire project.
Yeah, they didn't say that in the meeting last week, but I don't know, they had all the information, but they still showed 26,000 not to be funded, so we'll just have to kind of keep an eye on that and see where that goes. Maybe have to remind them, but anyway, what they'll do there on that east side of that 1050, they'll cut that back like they did on 4400 South when we built the bridge and the walkway down under I-84. They'll cut that back and put a walkway in there for people to walk. So they'll have that. It'll be a good thing. It's a lot of money, but they have gone out for the funding. So it hasn't been approved, but usually when they go out for these, we have a really good chance of getting those. And that's all I have for the mayor's report. Do you have any questions on those two projects? Too easy to get along with. Move along next, City Council Committee assignment reports. Anything from any committee that you're serving on? You have anything you'd like to report tonight?
I don't. They
Okay.
canceled the mosquito meeting because of COVID, so we haven't met.
Okay. I did read this morning that the VA had done a test on that malaria drug for COVID-19, and they found out it's not as good as they thought it was. So, speaking of mosquitoes. Okay, move on next to City Administration Report. You have anything, Steve, you'd like to talk on there? I know we have birthdays and things.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a little comment. I don't normally even read that full report, and I felt like I probably should since I might have to give a report on it tonight. But I was kind of, I guess, entertained when I look at Cody's, because Cody puts on there routine. He uses the word routine a couple times. Routine phone and computer work. And you know, this past month, I don't know that Cody does anything that's routine, to be honest with you. I mean, he might say that, but we brought him in as a finance guy, not a computer guy. And to be honest with you, he has saved our bacon during this thing. You know, we had to rush and use all the police hand-me-down computers, and he had to convert all those over for all our people that were going to work from home. And even like tonight for this meeting, I forgot my laptop. I was going to use my iPad, but he runs up to his office 20 minutes before this meeting starts and has me set up and ready to go on a new laptop. This is a finance guy. So for him to say that it's routine phone and computer things, I think he just doesn't give himself enough credit. I mean, you all know how Cody is, but I just kind of wanted to recognize that when he lists things as being routine in there. I don't think they're routine for any of us. And for somebody who's had to self-educate himself, I know he gets some help from the ETS guys and stuff, but nothing Cody does around here is routine. So kudos to him. I just wanted to recognize him for that. Most of those other reports there, they're self-explanatory. I think we have most of our department heads here. If you had questions on any of those things. Moving on to the employee recognition and anniversaries. I see Paul Flagg, 37 years. Is that correct, Jared?
That's correct.
That's amazing. You think about that, but congrats to him. And then our own Scott Brinkman, 21 years. This one makes me nervous when I see those kind of numbers. 21 years, and how many others did you have with North Ogden before you came here, Scott?
I've got 25 total.
So when a police officer's knocking on 25 years, that's why I say I'm nervous, because I know Scott's ready to head out that door anytime. He's just waiting for the right moment when somebody ticks him off enough that he's out of here. So Scott,
I'm not ready yet.
good, hang in there. Speaking of that, though, Scott did send us out a notice today for those of you, I don't know if the whole council got that, but former Chief Hansen, one of his daughters passed away this past week. I don't know if there's anything further you wanted to say about that, Scott, but mean, kudos to them too. For those of you who are young enough to remember, or old enough to remember perhaps, but I remember when that was all over the news when I was fairly young, and they had those two twin girls that were separated. They were conjoined at the head, and they separated them. That was like the first of its kind, and it caused a lot of issues and stuff. When I was talking to Scott about this today, those are the kind of stories that I wish news stations focused on. I mean, Dave and his wife are just amazing people because it hasn't been an easy journey for them, and I know this is a sad moment for them, but if you got a chance, maybe you could shoot a word to Dave and give him your condolences there. So, Casey Warren sitting at 16 years. Mike was president. I'm not sure if he's still here, but yeah, he is. 7 years for Mike, 5 for Amy Wright, 4 for Angie. We haven't seen Angie much. She's been able to do most of her stuff from home, so that's nice. I know she's a big post to lean on for Sean, and she takes a lot of headaches away from him. Brecklin, Co, and Officer Vasquez are all the ones that I'm showing here. So congratulations to each one of those. Staffing authorization still continues as it's always been. Community development report, Mike, did you have anything further on that? That's a no. And finance report, I don't know that Cody has anything more. We're going to be hearing a lot from him here pretty soon. We actually have been talking a lot about the budget, so that's one of the reasons why we felt that we could move forward and get some input on the change of that thing. We will be meeting with department heads hopefully later this week, but he's already met with a number of them individually, so he's got a pretty good grasp and idea of where we're at, and I don't anticipate there's going to be any big shakeups or big moves. So that's another reason why we figure we can get that done fairly quick without having to waste, not, I shouldn't say waste, and that's a poor choice of words, but taking up one of our Saturdays if we could avoid that. But that's all I had on that administration report there, Mayor.
Thank you. Do you have any questions on the report? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to item 3, presentations, a legal update. Steve, do you have anything there?
Yeah, one thing in particular, I don't remember if I informed you guys of this or not. We had 2 fairly good lawsuits going. One of them was an injury that occurred up at the firing range. I believe that was a SWAT team deal, Scott, wasn't it? If I recall correctly. Anyway, there was an individual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was SWAT.
That got hurt at the firing range, and they sued everybody that had anything to do with the SWAT. We got out of that one. They finally dismissed us from that case, so that one's gone. The landslide, and I say it's not necessarily particularly good news, but we did finally hear back from both the league and our insurance company. But we've been pushing really hard not to enter into settlement negotiations on that deal because we don't feel that we've done anything wrong, and we think that this just encourages more lawsuits. But ultimately, it's the insurance company and the league that pay for that, and so we don't necessarily have say in it. But we certainly wanted to voice our opinion, which I've been in Noah's ear almost daily, the attorney that's helping us on that. And we did get word back just last week that they are not going to settle that lawsuit, and they said move forward and start setting your jury dates. So we took that as good news. We don't think that we should owe anything on this, and so we will continue pursuing that one. So that's why I say it's kind of a win thing. You don't necessarily want to do that, but we don't think we owe any money. And the numbers that they were asking and things like that just is not even realistic in my book. Or what they wanted as a settlement offer, it wasn't something we wanted to do. So anyway, good and bad, but we've already started preparations on the trial work, so it's moving forward. We're still going to be probably late this year or even next year before it ever got to a trial, but we took that as a good move. We thought that was nice.
How many people are listed in the lawsuit? I know there were several other people besides Riverdale City.
In the landslide, yeah, there's I don't even remember. There's us in Washington Terrace, the cities, Weaver Basin, Pineview, Jerry, the guy Weaver that's on the hillside. Roger, I forgot about Roger. Roger's listed individually on that one, and we've tried to get that out too. Get him separated from that and get his dismissed. I don't think they have a leg to stand on his part, but they seem to think they do. So we'll continue on that one and pursuing that one. It eventually probably would get separated out, but not yet. I'm trying to think who else would have been involved on that. That's pretty much it. The only cities was us and Washington Terrace. Then the rest of them were like water departments and stuff like that.
So we're combining together with all those other entities?
No, well,
We do it separate.
we're separate, but we've worked together on a lot of those things. Like just this week, Washington Terrace filed some trial motions, and we joined in what they call on that a joinder. That we joined in with them on a lot of that stuff. We've been sharing resources and all those depositions that we've been doing. We're all there. We have our own meetings where we strategize and things like that because we're all kind of in the same position, especially actually in Washington Terrace. We're the same type of entity. We have the same claims or the same defenses. So it's been in our best interest. But the Terrace, I believe, is still an IRMA city. So they have separate representation than from what we have. But it's worked out really nice so far. We've been able to work together. And none of the defendants are, I mean, they've all been really good about working together. So that's been a bonus on our part and helped us. It's probably, in the end, will save us a lot of money and time, too.
Hey, Steve,
Yeah.
the settlement amount, do they have different settlement amounts for each of the different entities? Do each have their own settlement they're trying to get?
Well, they
Or is
did.
that figure we got, is that for all of us?
That was a combined settlement amount, but even combined, I don't know that we would consider something like that, you know? And one of the things that was on the table was us looking at maybe acquiring that land. Well, you know, the land doesn't serve us any value, especially the hillside part. We certainly wouldn't want to get ownership of that, because if that went down, then we would be in another lawsuit. So, and even the lower portion, I mean, and this was basically the letter that we had drafted to them, as I said, the lower portion is basically a horse pasture, which is what it was before the lawsuit. I mean, it has no services. I don't think it would ever have any. I don't know that we could get them down there. Maybe water, but I don't know that we could ever get sewer there. Sean can fill us in better on that, but it's just not a valuable piece of ground like the dollars that they were asking for. So that was a joint settlement that they were seeking there, Mayor, which all of us would have had to contribute, which we would have had to sit down and figure out how, but it was still way out of what we would have considered, I think.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on this? Do you have anything else, Steve?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay. All right, we'll move on next to the consent items. Again, consideration to approve the meeting minutes. Any changes or corrections since our work session? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the consent items?
So moved.
Second?
Okay, Counselor Mitchell, and who seconded it?
Brent.
Brent? Okay, super. All in favor?
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Okay, it's unanimous in favor. Move on to action items, okay? Action item number 1, this is consideration action to move or cancel Old Glory Days due to the COVID-19 concerns. Rich, I should have had you first in our work session, but I'm going to ask you to lead off on this. You got anything first?
Yeah, with all the uncertainty with COVID-19 and mass gatherings, it presents a little bit of a problem with our 4th of July celebration. In talking with our different vendors, fireworks vendor, as well as live entertainment and parade, 5K, all these different events, I think we kind of need to have a direction by the middle of May. And if we're going to put these things together, certainly we can adapt and do a lot of different things. I was in a meeting last week with about 50 different Parks and Recreation directors up and down the state of Utah, and there wasn't a single one of them who was going on as normal. There were some that were wait and sees, and there was a lot of adaptations, and there were some outright cancellations. So we're just looking for some guidance from the city council on how you guys would like to proceed with the 4th of July.
And you figure by the middle of May, right, you have a decision?
Yeah, and the reason I say that is, taking applications for a parade and sign-ups for a 5K and our fireworks. I spoke with him last week, and he needs to know by the first part of May in order to order the fireworks and pull them and set them up and put them all together and that kind of thing. So that's kind of what we're dealing with as far as the timeline on that. Yeah.
Okay. Council, go ahead.
I think the newsletter's probably a pretty big deadline for us too, because that's going to be our main way of getting the word out. I'm not sure when that deadline is, but we probably have to have a solid decision by that deadline.
Yeah, and it's about the 15th of May will be the deadline on the June newsletter. So we'd about the same time Rich would need to know, so we'd have to make a decision by the 15th. We really wouldn't have to make a decision tonight. We could entertain ideas, and then on the 5th of May, we could maybe discuss it further, but we might look at the options tonight, things that we could do or do differently. Councilor Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of what Councilor Hilton brought up about doing a parade that he talked about, I think is a very good idea. Now, as things to entertain, I think we need to prioritize, because there's a lot of stuff that goes on in Old Glory days. Now, in my household, I've been involved through default with the volleyball tournament for years. And normally, she would be in the planning stages of that. As soon as school gets out, she starts planning for the volleyball tournament. Now, there are other events. There's the basketball. There's the various events that need to be taken into account. Some of them need a little bit of lead time. Some of them, especially when you're doing T-shirts, but some of them don't need as much lead time. But it was brought up. Getting the word out is the critical, and I think, when you can get into some of the drop dead dates to make a decision, I think it hinges upon being able to get the word out is probably the more critical part. And I think the longer we can put off making the hard decision of go or no go would be a course of action that I'd like to follow at this point. And I think we have at least until the middle of May that was put out, but to at least do something, whether if it's that driving parade, if that's all we can do, and fireworks, that would be great. Now, the key, though, is the Old Glory Days activities are not mandatory. It's still a community event that people can participate in. And so if people don't want to attend something, they don't have to. But if there is something there for those that do want to attend, and that I think needs to be a big consideration. The other thing I want to bring up is the parade as it was. We typically would have about 70 entries, give or take. There'd be fire trucks, there would be city officials, there would be businesses, there would be the schools. And we checked with some of the schools, just kind of did a couple of things where, 12 to 15 entries would be the various junior high and high schools, bands, cheerleaders, student body officers, whatever. And they would have a hard time organizing and have had time to practice. So participation from, say, one of the high schools, drumline, maybe, but some of the junior highs where it's, where they did literally tryouts for cheerleaders online, and their time to practice and do some things, they're really not in a position to participate, or it would be very difficult to participate. And so, these are just some of the things that would make it difficult to have the traditional parade that we've been used to. But then again, I think we probably have a much clearer picture in the next couple of weeks. Anyway, that's all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Just real quick,
Go ahead.
in talking with the firework guy, he told me May 5th to the 10th is when he would need to know for the 4th of July. If we're wanting to push it off a little bit longer till May 15th or whatnot, I need to double back with him. I would hate to make a decision to go for it and be a week too late or something like that.
On making a decision on the 5th, the night of the 5th, have it on the agenda. We'll know more about COVID-19 and where we're at, I think, state. We'll be getting more direction from the state. I know the county wants to have another meeting or two in the meantime, and we'll probably be seeing what others are doing. And I just, that would fit the timeline for you, Rich, as far as the middle of the month plus the fireworks. I just wondered if the fireworks on the 4th, with the numbers of people that we normally have to tell them to go watch from the frontage road and the freeway, there's just, I don't know, Chief, there's just way too many people, I think. Rich?
We also have some issues with our site that limits the size of shell that we can shoot in the park for fireworks, which then results in them not getting as high up into the sky. So I know that there's places all around town that you can see them from, but there are some limitations that way with just the firework size.
So if you have less people, you can go with a bigger shell, can you? Is that?
No, our fallout zone would have to stay the same because there's structures around that fallout zone.
Oh, I see. What you're saying is they may not be able to see them if they
Our maximum height is 250 feet. So we utilize a lot of cakes that shoot between 100 and 150 feet for the show, which not all of those would be viewable.
Okay. Anyone have any thoughts on postponing it, or should we just try to go ahead and go for broke for the 4th? And any thoughts there from anyone?
Can I make a comment, Mayor?
Sure.
I just had a concern with the discussion about the parade. We have a really difficult time as is with the parade route that we currently have, trying to staff intersections and that. So we'd have to, if we were to modify that and do a really long, there would be some safety concerns with traffic that's still going to be free flowing, not being able to manage traffic as well at the intersections and those types of things. So if we were to modify that, we would just have to really take a good look and see if we could safely pull that off.
Yeah, it may not be quite as fun if you don't have anybody to wave to. Right. So everybody's in cars.
Mayor?
Yes.
I think one of the things that we have to worry about is if it's a city-sanctioned event, and then we start bringing people in, within social distancing, that if they're not, do we have any responsibility to, break things up, which would, not saying that, we're arresting anybody or anything like that, but would the police, fire, other people have issues where they're going through and saying, hey, you can't have a group here when, people are trying to break out of this. And I do think, we don't have enough information to make any decisions tonight. But I think being a city-sanctioned event is, we don't want the city involved in that kind of stuff, taking on that type of, I don't really think we want to be the lead city doing, breaking any social distancing because we're having a drive-by parade.
Yeah.
Or any type of.
Okay, thanks, Al.
Hey, Mayor,
Yes, Roger.
in follow-up to what Councilmember Arnold just said, depending on how this COVID goes and what the state or the county health departments indicate, if you're to hold something, we could get some negative PR from it. You know where I'm going with that?
Yeah.
You could have persons out there that would be critical of the event.
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of lean on what Councilmember Stevens said. Maybe we've got some time here to continue to evaluate it and maybe take advantage of that. But I think, Councilmember Arnold hits on something there. City could pick up some pretty negative PR if this thing still is ongoing, or if there is a resurgence of the virus. I don't know. I think maybe take your time and reevaluate it forthcoming in the next couple weeks.
Okay.
Just my thoughts.
No, I think it's wise. I think so. And with trying to make a decision on the 5th, looking down forward to that date, that's going to be really tough because they're just going to have started their soft opening for the businesses and that. And they said the last thing they would open is provide authorization is for groups of over 500. So we're probably not going to have any guidance or direction from the state by the 5th. And we're going to have to make our decisions. So it may be real difficult on that date. We just won't have any guidance, I don't think. Because they're saying wait up till the 1st of June to decide. We really can't do that for a July 4th thing. So,
Mayor, I have one additional comment.
Go ahead, Mr. Arnold.
I don't know if you saw on the news about the protest that they had where everybody went and got, they all met on, I can't remember if it was the Capitol steps or something like that. It's just on the news, and I could see if we're the lead out group to being protested, and you know what, it's my body, I'm not wearing a mask kind of thing. Saying I would be in support of postponing it for sure, and then seeing if we do something later and just saying there's I don't see any way we can do it by July. With the timeline that Rich has talked about with the fireworks, even opening this thing up. I mean, nobody's going to be diving out in public in big gatherings except for kind of the crazies that are trying to do it now. And I don't know if Riverdale wants to be a part of that.
No, you're right, and they could make a big deal. Could go sour. So appreciate those comments. Any thoughts if we were to postpone it?
Chinese New Year,
When is that?
Mr. Mayor?
in January.
January, yeah.
I love fireworks in January.
Mr. Stevens.
Thank you. And it sounds like what Rich was talking about is the firework guy needs about 2 months of lead time to be ready for a fireworks show. So to postpone, we almost have to have a hard date, or at least a couple of dates we're working with. And if we're having a hard enough time right now saying, okay, July 4th is probably not going to be viable for all of considerations, it's going to be hard to come up with some alternative dates and be able to make the same kind of planning. Okay, I'm just going to use fireworks. It becomes a real challenge. Now, Roy Days is the first part of August. I would have loved to be a fly on the wall to hear their rationale for canceling something that far out for the Roy City Council. But I'm kind of hesitant to say, yeah, let's postpone it, because you got to have some hard dates to work with and get the lead time to get organized, and that's a real challenge. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Stevens. Mr. Brooks.
I don't think one of the reasons Rich and I have talked on this. We're aware of a lot of these things that you're bringing up, and we know that we may have to think out of the box. And I like, some of the ideas you're throwing out there. All this has been discussed. Rich, you've mentioned that some of these things that we're looking at. I think one of the main things, we just wanted to let you guys know that we're aware of that. Our first choice isn't to just cancel it because everybody else is. And I think that's kind of where I was initially. We obviously want to consider some of these other things, but we want to do the right thing for the right reason. It still may get canceled, depending on what we say, but until we have a little bit more guidance, and we want you guys to be okay with us considering some of these options, who knows what's going to come? I mean, we just don't have any idea. And I agree, maybe July is not realistic, but who knows? We don't really have any idea, but we did want to keep you informed, both the mayor and the council, that, everything's on the table at this point. And we'll just keep working at it, keep watching it. I mean, Rich has been on top of this. We know where he's sitting on a lot of these things. So, and we'll coordinate that with department heads. But I think we'll be fine. We'll make a decision at some point in time, but we want you guys to be aware of the fact that it is an issue. And we want it, if we can pull it off, we'll pull it off. If we can't, we pull the trigger and cancel it. I mean, who knows?
One thing on, you mentioned Roy. They talked about Roy this morning, and I'd heard about the terrace in South Ogden in another meeting. But the Roy Mayor, Bob Dandoy, this morning, I didn't really fully understand whether it was canceled or if it was real close. So just for the record, I don't know that it's actually canceled, but they're really close to making a decision on it. They may even have their council meeting tonight, so I wouldn't want to start that and not have that be true statement. But the others, Logan, all them, I've seen and talked to the mayors on that. Mayor Dandoy is just a little vague on what they'd actually come up with, but it sounded like they were going toward canceling it out, not having it. So, any other thoughts or questions?
Yeah, Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Mitchell.
So I appreciate Steve's comments, and we appreciate the city kind of getting ready for this and thinking about it. And I appreciate what Councilor Arnold's saying too. Like we don't want to make a huge mistake, but it is quite a ways out, and I think we might even learn a lot in this next 2 weeks, hopefully. The 4th is maybe 6 or 7 weeks away, and you look back 7 weeks ago, none of us had ever even heard of this really, and so there's hope that there could be maybe a treatment that's going to come out maybe this summer. The heat's going to knock it down a little bit, so I think we want to hold off on counseling as long as possible, and even if we plan to scale down one and then we had to cancel that at the last minute, I don't think it would be the end of the world, as long as we didn't take a huge financial hit on it. But there's a lot of different things going into it, but I think the city staff's on the right page, it sounds like.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's important with all this information coming out, we all, council and staff, I'm sure the staff will be, but just be looking at the guidance and that's coming down on this kind of activities, so we can make a good decision. So go ahead, Mr. Ellis.
I think we need to coordinate with the other cities. If they're canceling that, we don't want to be the only one that has the celebration. And if they are going ahead with it, then we need to kind of coordinate with them because they'll have the celebration on the same day.
Yeah, say it again about on the same day. I didn't hear what you said there.
They have other cities that are having celebrations on the same day on the 4th of July. So we need to coordinate with those other cities so that we're not the only one that is or is not having that celebration. We need to have some kind of criteria that the other cities are using also.
Yeah, we can do that. Take a look.
Mayor?
I know there's a lot of them have different dates. I think West Haven might have been the same dates. I know she was trying to have some activities, just partial activities. I think theirs comes up, but Again, the terrace is early in June. I think about the third week is South Ogden Days, so they're all right ahead of us. I know those two have canceled. But I know that I mentioned earlier in the work session that some of the mayors felt like we all ought to either have them or cancel them, and that you really can't do that because of they have different dates, like Hooper, they're clear into about September, I think. Somebody had a comment?
Yes,
Mr. Stevens.
thank you. Going back to the driving parade through the neighborhood, Chief Brigham brought up some very good, valid issues. Now, when we were, well, let me restate that. Riverdale Elementary a couple weeks back did a little driving parade, and the fire truck and the police were very accommodating. And of course, it was the middle of the day when there's no traffic because everybody's at work. It's a little, okay, no pun intended there, but the point is he did bring up some very valid points, but can we just kind of over the next couple of weeks kind of massage that idea of the driving parade? Because granted, there are some things that when you're doing it as a school parade, it's a whole lot different than doing it as a community parade.
Yeah, I think there's some real concerns with doing that if you really think about it. Like, the chief has some concerns with it.
Granted, because you're crossing Riverdale Road and you're on the major arteries which the other one was not.
Right. Do you have any other comments on this, or should we table it? Is that easier, or just not take action? Probably have to table it, don't you, Steve?
Yeah, it'd probably be good to table it. Again, we just wanted to keep you informed, let you know that these are issues. We're looking at it. We'll keep working on it. Until we know more, there's not a whole lot we can do, but we wanted to keep the council advised of where we were at. We're not just ignoring it, that's for sure. Yeah, I just tabled it though.
Okay, do we have a motion to table this item?
So moved.
Okay, Councilor Arnold, do we have a second?
Second.
Councilor Mitchell, a second. Any discussion on the motion?
I have one comment.
Okay,
There's, on Governor Herbert's economic response plan, phase 2 is, the estimated time frame is 14 weeks. So, I mean, we're talking through the summer that, they're talking about public health measures, economic interventions. So, I mean, this from the state's economic response plan and stabilization phases, estimated time frame 14 weeks, and that was from March 24th.
it's a long time.
That's 3.5 months.
Yeah,
Well, and they're also concerned about that resurgent happening after we lift this come May 4th, that potentially we have this resurgent back in the economy and people start coming back into businesses and reinfecting each other. So that's one of the concerns. I don't know if May 5th is going to give us enough time to see what that potential resurgent does either with this economy thing that Councilman Arnold just mentioned.
handwriting's gotten on the wall, huh? Well, let's go ahead. Do we, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? It's unanimous in favor, Ms. Evans. Okay, move on to action item number 2, consideration to move the strategic planning date. That's from May 9th on a Saturday. I believe we talked in our work session to move it to the evening of May 5th on a Tuesday after our city council meeting. Is that what we did? We have a motion to make that move it to strategic planning date to May 5th on following our city council meeting.
So moved.
We would just need a consensus, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
Not a motion, is it?
No, that's fine. It's an action item, so.
We listed it as an action item just so you could discuss it. Otherwise, we couldn't discuss it any further. So.
Okay, do we have a consensus then to move it?
Yes, for Alan.
For Braden.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're good. Anybody opposed to that? Okay, we'll move that to May 5th, following city council. Move on to action item number 3, COVID-19 updates. Is there any more comments, Steve, or anyone on the COVID-19?
No, just the email that you had sent out advising the council that we were looking at closing the building. We did do that. We still have people here. They can still make appointments. It hasn't caused any major headaches. It's actually gone quite smooth. Once in a while we get somebody, but we put a more emphasis on the drop box out front, left envelopes, things out there. Chris set that all up so it's very visible, things like that. So it's gone quite well for the most part. Again, we're just day to day, I don't know how the governor's going to do that. My vision is that we will reverse it, just go back in the same order that we started this. But at this point, that's where we're at. I want to keep you informed on that. We haven't had any close calls that I'm aware of. Scott and Jared could maybe tell us a little bit more about that. But as far as I know, all of our people are staying healthy. We haven't had any shakeups in that regards. I have seen both our police and public works guys are being very careful about what they're doing. So kudos to them. Keeping good distance, doing exactly what we've asked them to do. Same thing with fire. I know they have too, a lot of protective gear and things like that. So unless Jared and Scott had anything further to add on that, I think we're still in good standing. Things are going smoothly.
Chief Shawley?
No, we've had COVID patients, but we haven't had any exposures. The guys are doing a great job on their PPE.
Super. How about Chief Brinkman? Anything from you?
We did have one exposure, so officer had to stay home for 14 days, but tested negative, so that was good. He's back to work now. The police department is open. We didn't close. Our lobby is still open 8 to 5 Monday through Friday, so felt like we needed to do that for people that have emergent needs, so we're still in operation there.
Okay.
They're set up a lot differently too. It's like a fortress to get in over there anyway, so it works out nice that way. So they are protected a lot more so.
Yeah, they're good. So, any other updates or comments? Move on to discretionary. Any discretionary items for this evening?
I have.
Okay.
That's as Steve Hilton was. Because of the way the church is set up now, they took away the emergency preparedness coordinator for the stake, which was Steve Hilton when he was released. And they gave it to a high council member, which is me. And so I need to set up a plan. I think one of the most important things is to set it up with emergency preparedness coordinator for the city. I think with the earthquakes that we've been having, all the other issues, if we were to have an emergency come through, one of the things that, at least for sure, the members of the LDS Church would, we'd have a lot of people, but not a lot of direction, a lot of household equipment, things like that. But as we saw with the tornado, there was a lot of people trying to help, but there wasn't a lot of coordination of how we're doing that. So I've been tasked to set that up shortly. I mean, I've been given kind of a, not really a drop dead date, but they told me to get on it. So it is Chief Shelley still our contact?
I am more than happy to work with you on that, Councilman Arnold.
We have a meeting scheduled the second Monday of each month. It's actually at 10 o'clock, Alan. It'd be hard for you to make that.
Is it a Zoom meeting? I can make those.
Yeah, we haven't had it. We haven't had one since Will Rogers been out, and haven't had one of those since we started Zooming, so.
It might be good just to have a general discussion first and kind of lay out some things and get some insight both ways and then go forward.
Right. I know when they had the flood with the canal and the canal broke, the people of the church and the community really came together, and it took kind of the city and Carl Cook at that point, who was the state president at that time, kind of took over for cleanup. But if we're in a true emergency and things like that, just like you always talk about with your site commander role when you go to a fire, we're going to have a lot of people showing up with a shovel and a willingness to help, but no training, no organization. I mean, we have to have a site commander that, and like, for example, if you're taking care of your family, where do we go from there and that type of thing. So we need a structure that we can start putting out by, a phone tree and things like that.
We do have something in place with the community center to make that a location to meet and then be assigned out through our mapping system. And
Okay.
then those individuals can go out to certain areas and help those areas that are in most need.
Okay.
And then that works through that instant command structure. So like I said, there's some things in place, and we use PD's grid system to work with some of that because it's very well laid out. So
Okay.
that would be something we can look at for
Okay.
sure.
Because I know when the earthquake happened, we were looking for our 72-hour kit, and the bag that I bought from Riverdale City was here, but there was nothing in it. So,
It is part of our emergency response plan, our ELC, and we do have people that are set up to go there to set that up.
okay.
So
Great.
we definitely need to practice it, but we have it. We do have an idea of what to do.
Okay. Wonderful. I'll get with you. Thank you.
Super
Yeah.
good.
Mr. Mayor,
Anything else, Mr. Arnold?
I have one comment, just with Councilmember Arnold. Prior to Steve being released from that, we did hold a couple meetings of discussion on where those volunteers of the church, we would like them to meet. And as Chief Shaw indicated, we do have a rough framework. We haven't practiced it. But Rich Taylor over in the community center would probably be the lead out on organizing the volunteers. And then the disbursement would be through the fire chief or the police chief as we move through the issue. We did have some after action reports after the tornado, and discussion of volunteers and how those volunteers would be managed, in future events that we may have. So we have discussed it in the past, and we can certainly go over that with you. Since you're filling the big shoes of Mr. Hilton, we certainly will be glad to do that, Alan.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. Any other discretionary?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Going back to what was brought up at the beginning about Dave Hansen, one of his daughters, do we have any details? There he had the two twins. One was a little bit more high functioning than the other. Do we know which one?
Yeah, it was Elisa, who, not the one who was quadriplegic. So, yeah, the one that was more, could walk and get around, she's the one that passed away.
Okay, and
Obituary was in the paper today, so if you want some more details, just go to the obituary page on the Standard Examiner.
thank you.
There's a gravesite on Wednesday, but didn't give a time, so that may just be private. I don't know. Do you know anything about that, Chief? Have you heard anything?
I think it is with everything going on. It's private.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. All right. I've got just one discretionary item I thought I'd mention, was brought to my attention. Miranda Rizzi, who is our, takes care of the senior center, works with the seniors over there. What's her title, Rich? Senior center coordinator? Or
Senior programs coordinator.
senior programs coordinator. I was talking to a resident here recently. Some of you might know him, Dave Leahy. He's a senior. He and his wife frequent the senior center quite often, as do a lot of other people go there for lunch. But I was talking to Dave at his home, and he said that Miranda had called 2 or 3 times to check on their family. And she's calling all the seniors that come to the senior center regularly to check on their welfare and make sure see if they need anything. And I thought that's really going the extra mile. So a lot of folks at the city are working at home and doing things, but this gal's actually reaching out to people that really might have a need and looking out for them. So I just want to give her an atta girl. I think, Rich, probably we need to look at some way to recognize her in the future when this thing goes over. I think there's probably others that are in the city, and we got great employees, but maybe keep in mind if you've got people that's kind of gone the extra mile for this, and probably they all have, but I think Miranda, yeah, that's pretty special. I thought that she's calling these senior citizens to make sure they're doing fine. So that's all I've got. Do we have any more public comment, Rich and Shaylee?
Have any texts, Mayor?
So no emails and no comments on YouTube.
Okay, so seeing that, do we have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Counselor Arnold, who made the second?
Right.
Right.
Braden? Okay. Just for Shaylee's knowledge. So thank you very much. Thanks for being here.
Good night, all.
Nice
Thank
to
you.
see you, Roger. Good luck tonight.